Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me, I'm Mark, a diabetes specialist dietitian, and I also run a website called Diabetes Diet Guy, which is all about helping people with diabetes manage their condition and live healthy lives. Now today's video is just an update from a previous video that I did about my COVID-19 situation. Now, the reason I wanted to do this is because I tested positive for COVID back in April 2020, just to give some context, depending on when you're watching this. And I did a video on my symptoms, and it's by far and away the most popular video I've ever done. You know, usually my blogs are getting sort of between 5 and 100 odd views, and this one's currently at like 16K. So, you know, give the people what they want. So I thought I'd give you an update. So if you're not already familiar with me, I do this in my free time at the moment. And so I actually still have a full-time job where I work in the NHS as one of the diabetes specialist dietitians. So with that, I'm actually quite fortunate because I'm gaining access to the continued testing to see if we actually develop COVID-19 and also, and more specifically, the antibody test. So I must have done the antibody test maybe about a month ago, and it came back that I actually do have antibodies, which is quite reassuring in one sense, but actually we still don't quite know what that means for the longer term. What I find interesting though, is people that have tested positive for the virus haven't tested positive for the antibodies yet. So my wife is a good example. So she actually didn't test positive per se, but she developed all the same symptoms as me around 3 days later after I test positive. So granted, we've got a bit of an assumption there, but when she took the antibody test, her results come back inconclusive. There's another colleague of mine who works with me who tested positive, but then when she had the antibody test, she was negative for antibodies. Now, there could be a few things that factor in here. One being how long you take the antibody test after developing the virus. Now, my wife actually had quite a lot of time between getting symptoms and having the antibody test, which came back, as was said, inconclusive, whereas my colleague actually had quite a short period of time. So maybe it takes a little bit of a time period there to start to develop the immune response that is actually picked up on a test. The other thing is, from my understanding, is what they're actually testing for the antibody test. So I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that what they're testing for is something called a T lymphocyte response. So the antibody test is testing for T lymphocytes. And there's a lot of other different types of cells in your immune response that can also fight infection that the antibody test isn't looking at. So you could actually have developed some form of immunity, but still test negative for the antibody test, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not saying that I myself or my colleagues who have tested positive for the antibody test are immune. We just don't know. Nor am I saying that the people that have tested negative for the antibody test are immune or are not immune. I guess the point is that we just don't know. What I do know, though, is so far out of all the people that have tested positive in my office, no one has actually gone on to redevelop it. So I'm not saying that they might not go on to get it again. I mean, there were certain viruses like the flu and the common cold. Actually, there's lots of different strains, and each year we pick up different strains of it, and then you have a different antibody response. But as it stands, no one I know has actually got it a second time, which is a promising thing, but I'm also very appreciative that it is an anecdotal case study of a very small sample. And actually, there might be a lot of other people out there that are convinced they've had it twice or actually tested positive a couple of times. I think we really need to give it some time to see overall what the possibilities are with regards to contracting it a second time. I have had one colleague who did test positive again, but she was asymptomatic, and it was only around 28 days after testing positive the first time. So actually there was probably some residual virus still in her, even though she wasn't symptomatic nor contagious. Interestingly as well, we actually had one or two of us in the office who tested positive for antibodies, but never actually developed symptoms. So it does kind of prove the point to an extent that you can be asymptomatic with this, but yet still be contagious and maybe infect other people. Now, the risk there is if you're not doing the things that they're recommending, like social distancing, hand hygiene, and now mask wearing at the time of filming, that you could be infecting people that then take it home to vulnerable people. So I think it just highlights the importance of really trying to do your best when it comes to following the rules as they stand, because obviously going to change as time goes by from the time I filmed this video, and just trying to keep everybody as safe as possible, particularly that vulnerable group. We're also being tested every week at the hospital to see if we have asymptomatic COVID. So I don't know if anyone of you had the test. It's not the most pleasant thing in the world. It involves a swab down the throat and up the nose, both of which go a little deeper than I'd like them to go. There's a lot of gagging and a lot of eye watering, but it's totally worth it, because should someone actually come back as positive, one, we know that those people that got those positive antibodies can get it again. And two, it just keeps people safe, because for those people that are asymptomatic, if they came back with a positive COVID result, then we can actually ask them, they can go home and stay away from the hospital, where obviously there's going to be a lot more vulnerable people, so they're not passing it on to those people. So there's my little update. Obviously, I will keep you updated. Should I come back and test positive, you'll be the first people to know, after me, my wife, my friends, my family. But we will keep you updated. But as it stands, things are going well. The worst issue I've had at the moment was my return to the gym today, where I thought I was going to die, not of COVID, but just from being tremendously unfit. But we got a good hour in, and, hopefully things will start getting back to normal. And actually, it wasn't too bad there either, if you're interested. People were keeping their distance, wiping down equipment. The staff were doing really well to keep things clean. It's all looking good. So I will keep you updated. I'm going to do more videos on just general healthy living and all things diabetes, of course. Hit the subscribe button if you're interested, and check out the website, diabetesdietguide.com, if you have an interest in diabetes or healthy living. See you later, guys.